Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I am your host for today's broadcast, Insane Leader 13, as we are prepared to get underway for the 4th out of 10 races for X League's Summer GT3 Pro Series. We're looking to have a respectably large field today, and we are also expecting to have quite a few drivers who made their first start last night show up tonight as well. Real quick before we get too deep into anything though, let's go ahead and look over the point standings as they are right now. This may be just a little bit slow. I do apologize. We are dealing with a little bit of technical issues farther back. But remember, that first 3 races of the season have been won by the same driver all the way through. So it's not really close at the top of the field. The fight might end up being more for second in the championship. There has been some balance changes brought in for this race, but we do not know how it's going to impact things. And even if the balance changes are significant, if the driver who's won the first 3 races of the season can just keep plugging away with podiums the rest of the year, they could still pretty much easily walk off with this championship. In the Manufacturers' Championship, Ford leads with a full 151 points. Second place with 120 points is Aston Martin. Third is Ferrari. They are sitting with 85 points. There is a tie for 4th and 5th between the manufacturers of Chevrolet and BMW. They have 73 points each. Dodge is setting it with 30 points, and Porsche is sitting with 23 points. In the Drivers' Championship, it works out as follows. 80 points exactly for the Aston Martin at the top. That is Twilight. Then you have Les Railgun. They are second in the Ford. They have 70 points. Third is Manuel Pedro. In the Ferrari, they have 64 points, just one ahead of the 4th place driver of Mays. Mays has had a fantastic run thus far this season, although it kind of came unglued in the last lap last night. But this is where he focuses on most of his money. Carr Matthew happens to run in 5th position. He is the highest repeat manufacturer. He has 42 points. And then there is a tie for 6th between Lil Kid Suave and Temper. They both have 39 points each. However, Lil Kid Suave, after what was determined to be excessively aggressive driving on circuit and improper conduct on track 2 weeks ago at Sebring, Lil Kid Suave is missing both the Friday night race and tonight's race. So we know that Lil Kid Suave is not going to be gaining any more points in the standings today. A little bit farther down from that, in the 8th position is NDL Shadow. Shadow is currently sitting with 30 points, with 24 points on the season. Just below them is Dex Kalula, and then you have Car Rebuilds in the next highest Ferrari. He's saying with 20 points at this stage of the season. There are other drivers, but those are the main ones we are going to be focusing on here for today's event. There has been some level of kerflufflery when it comes to trying to get the grid organized today, and we're not quite sure what's happened, but there has been a little bit of issues, so this is going to be kind of a strange warm-up lap here as the field has to get properly reorganized here. But we do want to go ahead and say thank you to XR Monaco for performing pace car duties for today's event. Dex Twilight in the Aston Martin has won the first 3 races of the season. No one has been anywhere near his ability. Remember, at the season opener at Hockenheim, he got turned lap 1, turn 1, and fell to dead last in a 20-car field by lap 10. He drove his way back to the front. He had no yellow flags to help him whatsoever, no pit stops, no nothing. He has just legitimately been that fast all season long. Manuel Pedro is second. This is the best qualifying run for a Ferrari thus far this season. But the thing is, the Ferraris have been very fast over single lap pace, but they have an awful time managing their tire wear. In 3rd place will be Les Railgun, the highest of the Fords. This was the manufacturer that dominated the championship at the end of the season last year, but they feel that they're down on power this year. Behind them is the next highest Aston Martin, that is Dex Kalula. They will be starting 4th, and 5th will be Breezy Rain, followed by Mays, who is going to be 6th. Tempered Ship will be 7th. Cars Matthew will be 8th. CLN Clinical 9th. Wiza 4, 10th, the highest of the BMWs. SSR Quinn will be 11th. Aero 592, 12th. Rundog, who got his first podium and his first start in the X Leagues in last night's Porsche Cup, he'll be starting in 13th. 14th will be Rebirth Quint. 15th will be Keflex 500 MG, another driver who made his first start last night. And then if you look back here at the very rear of the grid, there is going to be Savage 6647, Savage missed qualifying and will be starting in the back of the grid due to that. Pace car may have hit the pit lane attenuator while trying to pull off circuit there. We'll keep an eye on that depending on how, if we get a free moment. But the field is already doubled up. 8.5 lines, well no, it will be exactly 8 lines, 2 each, as they come out of the final corner to the green flag. Aston Martin on the inside, Ferrari on the outside, Ford GT and Aston Martin in row 2. And we come to the start-finish line. It is green flag, and the outside line got a fantastic jump. It looked like Twilight was completely caught off guard. They are being swarmed by Manuel Pedro and Les Railgun. These two drivers know they cannot let this Aston Martin get a lead by any chance necessary, but the 44 goes deep into turn number 1 and gets turned from behind by the Ferrari, loses a little bit of traction. That lets Railgun pull up alongside. Railgun to the inside. Are we going to see someone overtake Dex Twilight on merit for the first time this entire season? No, because around the outside, Dex Twilight goes right to the front. It looks to me like the rebalancing attempts have had no impact whatsoever. Dex Twilight just made an overtake on the outside line, a move that is considered impossible in GT3 cars, and he did it with no issue whatsoever. I think those Astons might still be the top of the grid, but the question, of course, is going to be, is it the cars or is it the drivers? Les Railgun still stays right behind Dex Twilight for the moment as they now come down into Speedway Turn 2 and into the short chute. Already, Mays has worked his way up into the 4th position. Mays is trying to make it 8 straight X-League events this summer where he has led at least 1 lap. Manuel Pedro has slipped back to the 3rd position right now. Out of the final corner, the straight lines are going to massively favor the Aston. The Ford in second won't have anything he can really do. Railgun is close enough to keep the draft, but he's not going to be close enough to really do anything with them as they go down the straightaway here. Pedro hanging out in 3rd. Mays still right behind him in 4th. Railgun closes in under braking, but the 44, Aston Martin that leads, is just having no issue. There is not a single place on the track where that car looks weak at all. Already, he has now pulled over a half-second lead in just about a lap, and now Les Railgun is under threat from Manuel Pedro and Mays. So it looks like even though Dex Twilight completely botched the initial start, it does not matter. That Aston may be good enough that it just doesn't matter. He's just able to dog walk the rest of the field with no issue. The big question, though, of course, is it the driver or is it the car? Because Dex Kalula qualified in 4th position, but he has already fallen back to the 10th spot on track. So while one Aston Martin is absolutely dog walking the field right now, the other is plummeting backwards. So we really have no idea where the advantage is. There's been a lot of controversy within the X-League GT3 teams about if it was the Astons having an advantage, if maybe it was the Ferraris that had an unfair advantage, if it was just the drivers were too good, or what. But in either scenario, it is once again Twilight, Railgun, Manuel Pedro. The top 3 of the championship are the top 3 on track. Breezy Rain has just moved by his teammate Mays for the 4th position farther back there. Clinical runs in 6th, Wiza 7th, SSR Quinn in 8th, Matthews is 9th, and Dex Kalula is 10th. We are on our 3rd racing lap. Let's look at the tire wear of everyone on track right now. 11% tire wear for Dex Twilight, your leader. For Les Railgun, who runs 2nd in the Ford, 12% tire wear. For Manuel Pedro, who runs 3rd in that Ferrari, 12% tire wear. For Breezy Rain, the highest of the Chevrolets right now, he is at 18% tire wear. So it looks to me like Breezy Rain may have thrown on the soft tire compounds to try and just make up some ground here. 18% for the Chevy of Mays as well. And then CL and Clinical, this is the next highest Aston. Now that we saw Kalula's drop back, he is at 13.7% wear. He also has a little bit of engine damage. Wiza 4, this is the highest BMW right now, 13% tire wear. So right now, it looks like most of the field is on the medium compound tires, except for the Chevys. The Chevys are on the soft tire compounds right now. Quinn was on the mediums. This is Car Matthews here, was another one of the Fords, 14%. So yeah, by now that would be about right. As they get really messy there, is Dodge versus Ford versus Aston Martin. That is Dex Kalula messing his way by Quinn. 3 wide there. A lot of corner-to-corner and door-to-door contact. And Kalula's trying to make his way back up to the grid, but now that's Arrow, another BMW that's in the midst of this fight as well. Well, farther up the grid, the 2 Chevys of Mays and Breezy Rain are right behind Manuel Pedro, and Pedro is putting pressure on Les Railgun, but they do not seem to have the ability to get by the Ford right now. And while these drivers are all fighting amongst each other, Twilight is scooting away, and that might get submitted into stewards later. Breezy Rain on the outside really shoved Manuel Pedro below the curbs there. And if there ends up being a time penalty, remember, you do not get any chance to get time penalties removed So Pedro is likely going to be very upset if that ends up coming down as a time penalty against his number 95 Ferrari. But that is the 17 of Breezy Rain, who now goes into third position. And around the outside, Mays is going to try and follow suit. But while the Chevys have some great horsepower and some respectable single lap pace, they usually don't have long turn pace over the full run. They have the most lap time fall off out of all the GT3 cars as the tires go away. They do not really benefit a lot from the lighter fuel loads. Manuel Pedro holding station in fourth, but Mays now gets to his inside, side by side between fourth and fifth position. While this has happened, Les Railgun gets a chance to try and break away a bit, but already Dex Twilight has about 1 2/3 of a second of a lead after just 4 full laps here. And it looks like Run Dog, who had a podium last night, has suddenly dropped out of the event. Frustrating to see for someone who had such a great run last night, is not going to have any chance to replicate it here tonight. Through turn 4, as Manuel Pedro has now fallen behind Mays, he'll try and set up for a great run out of the backstretch chicane. He's going to commit to the outsides that come down to the braking zone. Wrapping it around the outside, he's able to keep the Chevy pinched in, side by side into the S's. You don't want to do that. And yes, it looks like Pedro backed out at the last moment and gave Mays fourth position. But again, these Chevys in third and fourth spot, they are on the softer compound tires. They look fast now, but they may be a massive strategy disadvantage. We have completed just about 5 laps. These drivers are already at 34% wear on their soft tires. So you do the mathematics, you could maybe see them go about 11 laps on the softs. That might be a little longer than anticipated. It might be closer to 10 laps, but still 10 to 11 laps on the softs would be a little bit longer than what we saw in last night's Porsche Cup race. So the soft tires may have a little bit more life, and on top of that, the mediums may have more life as well. This race is the same length as last night's race as well, so a lot of the strategies there will transfer over. But the thing is that there were a lot of yellows in the early and mid stages of that race, and then the last 14 laps were all run under green flag conditions, which really kind of shook up the strategies multiple times over. But we are still in the middle of a green flag run right now as Breezy Rain has muscled his way by Les Railgun, but has a 2.3 second gap on Dex Twilight in the lead right now. And I do not think that those tires on that number 17 Chevy will hold up long enough for him to run down Twilight and get by him. Twilight has vanished into the distance thus far tonight once again. So the talk about altered balancing, altered car building, looking at buffing other cars or maybe bringing down the performance of the Ferrari or the Aston seems to have gone nowhere. The only one who's really struggling is Manuel Pedro, and this is really not a surprise. We know that Pedro's a good driver, but these Ferraris have shown a lot of inability to keep their tires under them, and it causes their handling to just go absolutely atrocious after about 2 to 3 laps on new tires. Les Railgun is third. He is the Ford, the meaty Ford, between the breads of Chevrolet in an American GT3 sandwich right now. Mays is closing in on Railgun. Significant close in there in turn 1. Really taking advantage of the softer tires right now. Breezy Rain is closing the gap on Dex Twilight down a little bit. Mays pulls up behind Railgun in turn number 4. Not really in a position to pull onside and get by though. Breezy Rain now within 2 seconds of Dex Twilight. So that, again, that gap is closing. But by the time Breezy catches Twilight, his tires are going to be cooked. He is not going to have anything against this Aston Martin in the lead. Again, Dex Twilight has only now hit 30% wear on those tires. So those tires could probably go about 15, maybe 16 laps without too much issue. If that is the case, this would be a very simple 2-stop affair for most of the field. Pit on lap 15, then pit on lap 30, and just don't worry about tire fall off. But that's only if we stay green flag to flag. In this race last season, there were 4 yellow flags, including 2 of them in the last 10 laps. In the Porsche Cup race here last night, we had 3 yellow flags, but we ended with a 14-lap green flag run at the end. I would find it unlikely to see this event go full green flag for all 45 laps tonight, but if it does, there is nothing going to stop Dex Twilight from walking off here. He is leading on what is going to be, quite frankly, the only viable strategy tonight. Maze has now muscled his way by Les Railgun. So Railgun slips to 4th position. Breezy Rain is 2nd, and Dex Kalula, holy moly, Dex Kalula and Dex Twilight both lag out at the exact same time! And Cars Matthew lagged out! We just had 3 lag outs at the exact same time! Including our race leader! Suddenly Breezy Rain goes into the lead! What in the devil has happened to warrant this? We'll try to reach out to the drivers and see what's happened. Car Matthew also dropped out as well. And Car Matthews was on track for a top 5 result in points, depending on how his performance was for the rest of the time. But this now puts things in Maze's pocket. And now with Dex Twilight, Car Matthew, and Dex Kalula all having lagged out at the exact same point in the event, the championship gets blown wide open. Twilight can't finish better than 14th. He'll still get a few points, but Maze is leading now on the primary strategy, and Maze was 2nd coming into this race. Maze is going to be in position to not only close up, but take over the championship points lead with that, but we are suddenly down to just 12 drivers. So yeah, actually Dex Twilight will be credited with a 13th place finish. But yeah, suddenly we are down to just 12 drivers left on circuit now. Fewer drivers means it's less likely you'll get a yellow, although in X League that's not a guarantee that there won't be anything. And Breezy Rain is now leading with his teammate Maze running around in 2nd position right now. We look at Breezy's tires, he is at 58.8% wear right now. I look at Maze, who runs in 2nd position, number 13 Chevy, he's at 57%. He is burning up the rear tires. Breezy Rain is burning up the front tires. So while these cars have the same tune on them, the driving styles between Breezy and Maze are distinctly different and are causing them both to really burn through their rubber in 2 very, very different ways. But Chevrolet leads laps here after Dex Twilight, Car Matthews, and Dex Kalula all lag out at the exact same time. And suddenly, the championship gets blown wide open. I don't think this race is blown wide open because we still stay green, and Les Railgun is leading on the primary strategy by about 1.9 seconds over Manuel Pedro right now. And I don't think that the Ferrari has the ability to manage the tires well enough late in the stint for Pedro to really close back in on Railgun. The Ford GT, even if it's not fast this season, we know for a fact that the Ford GT platform in this game is fantastic at being cautious on tire wear. The only car that arguably is better on tire wear is the Dodge, but the Dodges have been generally incompatible with most of the circuits on the schedule because the Dodges do not have good straight line speed. The Fords have competent enough straight line speed, and they're good enough on the tire saving. I think Les Railgun is now in the position to walk off with this win here. But again, it's going to be one of those that really is going to stick in his craw, because while it looks like he is bound to win, as he now muscles away by Maze with no issue whatsoever, as those Chevy's tires are falling off, Railgun knows that on merit he had nothing at all for the Aston Martin of Dex Twilight. Breezy Rain pits now at the end of lap 11, and Maze joins him. So it looks like 10 laps is how far you can go on the softer compound tires. Les Railgun, with that in mind, can probably go about 15 laps. I imagine he'll pit on either lap 15 or lap 16. And again, those 2 Chevys of Breezy Rain and Maze, we believe they were the only ones who ran the soft tires early on here. So everyone else on the mediums will stay out for a bit longer. Things are going to calm down a bit. I will be a little bit interested to see where Maze and Breezy end up, but with the way it is looking, I think they're going to end up being the last 2 cars on track here. Oh, Keflex has had something happen there to him. Keflex has had an incident, and XR Monaco has suddenly dropped out. Another driver suddenly pulls out. No damage on this car. Did we just lose another driver? We did. Wiza 4 is out. Now Tempered Ship is out. All of a sudden, drivers are falling over left and right. What is going on toward this? I think we're having a complete... I don't know if this is a lobby failure or if there is some sort of protest going on by the drivers, but suddenly, Maze is the only car left on track. Everyone else has pulled out. What has happened to warrant this? Well, we are in complete confusion right now. We're going to take a Twitch-mandated ad break, and when we come back, hopefully we can get some word as to what in the devil has ended this race about at its 25 to 30% completion mark. We'll be back shortly here. This is one of the strangest things I've seen in my years of broadcasting here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to Indianapolis Motor Speedway on the Grand Prix circuit. We are under what is going to be a hybridization of a red flag scenario and a race restart. So this race is going to restart, but instead of it being a 45-lap affair, the length of the race will now contract down to 34 laps total. I believe it will actually be 33 proper racing laps and a pace lap. All drivers who lagged out are being invited back. They will be scored with all the laps completed, even if they were not on track for those 11 laps due to the dropouts. So everyone, including the Aston Martins that were at the front of the field, they will be right back in it. However, those drivers who lagged out, they will be restarting at the rear of the grid in the order they qualified in amongst themselves. All the other drivers will still be on track. So this does mean that the Ford GT will restart this race in the lead. This is going to be a very, very strange affair, as we are waiting right now for them to reload the number of laps left in the lobby here right now. So yeah, apparently 3 different drivers lagging out at the exact same time, coupled with multiple other drivers lagging out right afterwards. There we are. Now the lap counter has changed. The anticipation is that they will be going green in about 3 minutes time here. Apparently, the majority of the drivers who lagged out were Brazilian, so it may have been something wrong with the servers in Brazil. But they are unsure, and we are still going to be going green irregardless this time by. So one question is, will there be a proper pace lap, or are they going to go right off the line? The word is they are going to have a pace lap here. So technically, we have had a red flag period and a what you could call a partial lobby restart. Again, all the settings are going to be the same, but the lap count is going to be reduced by 11 laps. This is now a 34 lap affair. What does this change? Well, for one, with 34 laps event, 33 when you count out the pace lap, things get interesting for strategy. All of a sudden, you don't just do easy, medium, medium to the end. Suddenly, you can two-stop it, but how do you want to two-stop it? You could two-stop with one stint on the soft tires, 2 stints on the soft tires, or do you really roll the dice and try to do 3 runs on the soft tire compounds? Again, the soft tires that the Chevys ran, they were only able to make them go about 10 laps, well, technically 10 racing laps and 1 pace lap. If you could make those soft tires last 11 racing laps plus 1 pace lap, you could potentially make it a 2-stop affair, but only on the soft tires. But anyone who wants to be a little bit more conservative, you could run the medium tires, sacrifice some pace for some tire life, and not have to worry as much about the soft tires falling off later. But in that case, do you start the race on the mediums? Do you run mediums in the middle of the race? Do you run mediums at the end of the race after you've built up a gap? There's also, of course, still the risk of yellow flags. We don't know what the yellow flags could end up looking like. But I will say, other than the drivers who got kicked out, they obviously get a big benefit by getting to come back, but the 2 Chevrolets now get a massive windfall thrown to them. Yes, they're going to be near the middle of the field on this restart, much farther back than where their pace dictated, but they are not out of the woods yet. They were the only ones who started on the soft tires, anticipating an early yellow flag. It did not come. They were on track to potentially not even come close to the top 10 based on the lack of pace that the soft tires had compared to the mediums. Now, though, with this race being reduced by 11 laps, they all of a sudden may have the chance to do something. And we know that Mays is a master at making wacky and wild strategy calls and pulling off great results with that. So we are anticipating that we should be loading onto the circuit any moment here. All the drivers who lagged out are going to be allowed back in. Don't know what the heck Subaru is in the wrong Mercedes for, unless he is supposed to be there for... No, he's in the right one. Never mind. No, he's not even there. Okay, so we're going to have 16 cars by the looks of it. So we're not going to have a pace car by the looks of it. No pace car, safety car, or anything like that. Again, this is going to be a very interesting scenario because several of our fastest drivers are going to be shuffled to the rear of the grid. And the strategies have been turned all upside down, topsy-turvy here for this red flag due to what seems like a internet outage in Brazil that has knocked out about a third of our drivers. I know I was wrong. Monaco will be here, so we will have 15 cars. Not 16, we'll have 15 cars. So it does look like Rundog is not coming back in to rejoin us, but all the other drivers who legged out will be. Interesting thing here, it looks like since they are going to go off of the end of lap 11, they are actually going to count the Chevrolets of Breezy Rain and Mays ahead of Les Railgun. So the Chevys get an even bigger windfall. They are going to be restarting this race right at the head of the field. That is even more interesting, I feel, because now Les Railgun in third has to figure out a way by. Now, likely Railgun and Breezy and Mays will all be on similar tires, so that Ford should be fast enough to make something of it. But all of a sudden, the Chevys, their windfall has turned to a massively positive windfall. Catflex will be restarted in 10th. Rebirth Quint will be 11th. Cars Matthews will be 12th. Savage will be 12th. Car Matthews will be 13th. Dex Twilight 14th. And Dex Kalula will be 15th. By the looks of it. And Manuel Pedro will restart in 4th in the lone Ferrari entry tonight. Only one of our BMWs will continue, and that will be Wiza 4, and it looks like he'll be starting or restarting in the 8th spot. For the Dodges, Quinn, Keflex, and Rebirth all will still be here on track. Mind you, 2 Chevys at the front. The other Chevy of Savage will be out of the top 10 when we restart this. We're going to do a Twitch mandated ad break as they do the pace lap. When we come back, we should see them take the green here at Indianapolis Road Course. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Grand Prix circuit for the X-League GT3 Pro race, as we are under the yellow flag in a partial race restart after a red flag on lap 12. This is lap we are on now, I guess, is going to technically go down as lap 12, but we are going to go green with 33 laps to go here. We think that Les Railgun, who will be restarting third, and Manuel Pedro, who will be restarting fourth, we believe those two are on the medium tires. But we believe that Breezy Rain, It's Maze, and CLN Clinical, your first, second, and fifth places on this restart, will all be on soft tires. For the Chevys, this has turned into a perfect scenario. They have clean air and soft rubber. They can try and run away from the rest of the field. Again, we still think this is a two-stop affair, but we don't know how it's going to play out. The other thing as well, this is going to be a very rare scenario. We are going to have a double file restart in this scenario as well as they come out of the final corner. The Chevys had a great launch on the initial start of the race. What is it going to look like on the restart? They come to the start-finish line. Are they prepared? Breezy on the inside is definitely prepared, and so is Maze. Breezy and Maze have a fantastic lunge away from the field. That is Arrow, I think, who's trying to make moves farther back there. As BMW on the outside, this is going to be interesting. That is Quinn on his inside. He gets into it with them. They are three wide, and the 58 gets knocked into the dirt just a little bit. Manuel Pedro slips back to the fifth spot. CLN Clinical in the Aston now is in fourth, going to pull up alongside the Ford, trying to move in the third spot. If the Aston Martin is as good as they say it is, we should see CLN Clinical dispose of Railgun and Pedro easily, then run down Breezy Rain and Maze and just blast off with the lead because he has soft tires, and that would be the fastest that we would have seen the Aston Martins go thus far. But Clinical has not gotten by the Ford or the Ferrari yet. Pedro has rebounded back into the third spot, but it is Breezy Rain who leads over Maze at this stage of the event. Again, all the rubber is going to be on. Oh, what's happened to Clinical? What's happened to Clinical? He's gone off. Clinical has gone off. There's no damage to the car. But all of a sudden, what looked like a promising restart for one of our Astons has suddenly gone away. Now, of our fastest drivers on track, Dex Twilight is already up into the 7th spot. He is just cutting through traffic as if they are not there. He is cutting through traffic as if they are standing still. As the Dodger Rebirth Quint gained into the dirt a little bit farther back there, but Dex Twilight has already gone from 15th to 7th in just a single racing lap. Now he has tempered chip. The Aston Martin has more than enough speed, should be able to make this overtake with no problem whatsoever. already has 7% wear on those tires, but I have a feeling that Twilight might not be too worried about tire saving. When you are about 0.4 seconds a lap faster than everyone else on track, you can run all but the dumbest strategies and pretty much win by default. Breezy Rain is leading. It's Maze is second. Manuel Pedro third. Les Railgun fourth. Arrow 592 in the BMW has filtered his way up into the top 5. But 6th place is Dex Twilight, and Twilight wants to get back to the lead. Already, he has made up 8 positions since the start of this race. He is not done yet, as he is now harassing Arrow as they come out of the S's on the run down into Speedway Turn 2. Nobody has anything for that Aston Martin of Dex Twilight. It has been impossible for anyone to get an overtake on him. Even when you have a tire life advantage, it will not matter. You cannot pass Dex Twilight in the Aston Martin. The other Astons seem to be vulnerable, not Dex Twilight. He is trying to go and win every single race this season, something that we thought we would never hear of in X League after how competitive the last few years have been. But Twilight may still have this on wrap for a walk-off win here because he is faster than everyone else. He pulls alongside Arrow 592. There is nothing that the BMW can even try to do. The 44 goes deep into turn number 1, completes the overtake with no issue. Already he starts opening the gap on Arrow. So Twilight now up into the 5th spot. The next driver he would be looking at will be Les Railgun, who runs 4th right now in the Ford. Manuel Pedro runs 3rd right now in the Ferrari. He is at 19% wear on the rear tires. I look at Maze and Breezy Rain though, they are at 18% wear each, and that is going to be interesting. So this means the top 3 drivers all are on softer compound tires. The driver who is burning their tires up the fastest out of these 3, it is Breezy Rain. His teammate Maze is running interference in 2nd position. Is Maze going to force his way by his teammate, though, if he is fast enough, and go up there and try to lead a lap and try to open a gap on the rest of the field? Again, Dex Twilight is in 5th and running the gap down on this duo. If Maze is faster than Breezy, it would be in the Chevrolet's interest to swap positions and let Maze get into the lead and try to run off here. Doubly so with Manuel Pedro hanging out in 3rd, really harassing them. But for the moment, Maze is going to play the part of good teammate and just run behind Breezy Rain. Dex Twilight is only 5.4 seconds out of the lead right now. We have seen him do one of these immaculate drives from last to first before. This isn't quite last, and the field is a little bit smaller as well, but we have no reason to doubt that Twilight could run down these drivers here at the head of the grid at will. This trio has absolutely pulled away from Les Railgun in 4th, and Dex Twilight in 5th isn't really closing on the top 3 as fast as you'd think, but he is closing down on Les Railgun with speed. Still, this would pretty much be a first, I think, over the season. This would be the first time that Dex Twilight would have to overtake Les Railgun on merit, not by virtue of starting ahead of him or having a massive tire advantage. He is at 17% wear on his tires. I look at Les Railgun, who is in 4th, 16% wear on his tires. So Les Railgun has a slight tire life advantage right now. What can Railgun do to push that tire life advantage? Or is it something that's going to be a moot point with how this race is playing out? Manuel Pedro has just muscled his way to the inside of Maze. So now move that number 95 Ferrari up into 2nd spot. Maze tries to get back to his inside in the 2nd to last corner, but there's nothing that really can be done there. Pedro has 2nd and is now going to be focusing forward on Breezy Rain. And with the way that Maze does not seem to have any pace, I wonder if Maze's streak of leading at least 1 lap in every event thus far this summer in the X League is going to come to an end tonight. Manuel Pedro has gotten by for 2nd, but he is about a 2nd out from Breezy Rain. The thing, though, is that Breezy Rain is burning up his front tires as we speak. Les Railgun just ahead of Dex Twilight. Railgun has a tire advantage, has a track position advantage, but everything that Dex Twilight seems to have has made him impossible to overtake and basically all but impossible to defend against. No one has been able to keep Dex Twilight behind them all season long. When Twilight is behind you, it has always just been a matter of how long until he gets by. Railgun needs to try and undo that trend, and he needs to do it tonight because he has been given this massive windfall, track position, tire advantage, everything. If he cannot keep him behind, this over, and that was a choke job. Railgun choke job coming out of the S's, went right off, dropped tires into the dirt, and Twilight goes right by as if Railgun was basically standing still. So Dex Twilight now makes his way up into the 4th position, and we go back to Dex Twilight leading on what we could probably call Strategy A, which is starting the race on the medium tires, and Breezy Rain is leading on Strategy B, which is starting on the soft compound tires. Aero 592 runs in 6th position, highest of the BMWs right now, but they are leading a big glut of cars back there. There's Astons here, there's Dodge, there's Ford, there's a Beamer. It's all sorts of manufacturers in this fight here for what is currently 6th spot. A fantastic fight here in the middle of the field, but at the front is almost side by side. Does Pedro have the speed? He does. Pedro pulls to the inside of Breezy Rain. Breezy's going to go to the outside. Pedro on the inside. Pedro completes the overtake. The number 95 Ferrari now goes into the lead here at Indianapolis. Manuel Pedro led late last night in the Porsche Cup race, but he pitted 2 laps earlier than his rivals. His tires were cooked. He lost the lead with about a lap and a half to go and fell to a 2nd place result. Pedro now leads and streaks away from Breezy Rain with no issue whatsoever. Immediately starts opening the gap, not just on the Chevys, but for the first time we see somebody actually open the gap between themselves and Dex Twilight in terms of time today. So that's interesting to see. CLN Clinical has had something happen to him in the Aston coming out of the S's. I believe that's the 2nd time he's had something happen to him, actually. He has a bit of engine damage as well, and those tires are cooked. So everything has become completely unglued for CLN Clinical. The Chevys of Breezy Rain and Maze still run nose to tail, but now is for 2nd and 3rd, and Manuel Pedro leads and is trying to stretch away from the field, and he is doing it. He is opening the gap on the duo of Dex Twilight and Les Railgun. Pedro has speed, and he is really showing it and stretching the muscles in that Ferrari right now. I still feel that Maze is likely faster than Breezy Rain, and all these laps he is spinning running behind his teammates just compromise him. 45% wear on Breezy Rain's tires. I look at Maze's tires behind him, 43% wear. So 43 for Maze. I look at Breezy once again as he goes through the S's, 47% wear. Likely Breezy will have to pit about a lap earlier than Maze, I'd imagine. So while they may be even right now, I wonder if Maze is just holding back and trying to manage his tires to have slightly better tire life later in the event. Last night in the Porsche Cup race, Maze was on track for a podium finish, but his tires died and he ran out of fuel on the back straightaway, was relegated to a 10th place result. He's going to try and not replicate this mistake. He's just trying to save some performance in that car right now, so that won't be an issue. Our top 3 go across the start-finish line. Manuel Pedro leads by about 2/3 of a second over Breezy Rain, followed by Maze. Dex Twilight's massive march forward through the field has stalled out in 4th, but he is pulling away from Les Railgun slowly but surely. It still looks like Dex Twilight is the driver in the catbird seat, poised to walk off with this win. His teammate Dex Kalula, after restarting basically dead last pretty much, is up into the 6th position. He has cleared Savage, which is the 3rd of the Chevys tonight. He is holding station. Rebirth Quint runs in 8th spot. Tempered Ship hangs out in 9th. SSR Quinn has slipped to 10th. Aero 592 in the BMW has slipped to 11th. He is now under threat from his teammate Wiza 4 in the number 04 BMW. Car Matthews in the last of the Fords is there in 13th spot. 14th is CL in Clinical, and 15th goes to Keflex 500 MG. Keflex 500 milligrams. Breezy Rain continues to just fall away from Manuel Pedro by about 2/10 or 3/10 a second a lap, but they have maintained a gap of roughly 5.5 to 6 seconds over Dex Twilight. Thing is, we are at the point that the soft tires are going to be falling off. 55% wear already for Breezy Rain. For Maze, I look at his tires, only 52%. So he can go a lap longer on the tires, it looks like. Then I look at Manuel Pedro, your leader in the Ferrari. He is at 55% on the tire wear. So I think Pedro and Breezy will have to pit a lap earlier than Maze just due to tire fall off. Maze might still end up leading the lap on this strategy, starting on the softs, but going 1 lap longer than everything else. The other interesting thing, though, if Maze can go 1 lap longer now, he could do that for the rest of the race and not really worry about tire fall off. That could pay huge dividends for Maze if he can run this entire race all softs all the way through. But he'll need to get by his teammate Breezy Rain, and this is the move. Maze finally goes to the inside of Breezy, going down the back straightaway. Breezy Rain is not going to fight him back for it. Mays now goes up into the second spot. I think that Mays is just trying to manage his tires, try and make this a two-stop event, soft tire strategy. I think the likes of Dex Twilight and Les Railgun back there in 4th and 5th, they are starting on the mediums. They will throw on the soft tires later, hoping that the lack of tire fall-offs in those later stints will get them back on Mays. But Mays is running in second spot. He has about a 5.8 second gap. Well, now it's closer to about 5.6 second gap over Dex Twilight. Manuel Pedro leads, but Pedro's tires are going to be massively falling off this lap. If you want to make this a two-stop affair on all soft tires, these three drivers need to go until lap 12. Do the Chevys have the fuel to go to the end of lap 12, pitting just as we start lap 13, basically? That is the question. 60% wear on Mays' left rear. I look at Breezy Rain. He is at 64% wear on the left front by the looks of it. So the soft tire, yeah, we see Ciel and Clinical in 14th. Now, he has had 2 spins, which has not helped his tire life whatsoever, but he could only go 10 racing laps on the soft tires before finally jumping into the pits. So the soft tires have definitely fallen off a cliff now, but Mays is starting to chew in to Pedro's advantage. Pedro is really losing time now. 64% tire wear. Also, he has a lot more fuel in the tank than the Chevys do right now, so he is running that thing nice and heavy. Mays hangs out about 1 second behind Manuel Pedro, but the tires are going off. He gets into the dirt. Breezy Rain gets a run on him, gives him a shove, but is not going to try and force the overtake. I think the handling is just so bad that this soft strategy is not going to pay out. All of a sudden, Dex Twilight is starting to close the gap down. Pedro is staying out another lap. Mays hits the wall coming into the pit lane. Mays hits the wall coming into the pit lane. I don't think he damaged the car, but the Chevys abort. They cannot go 12 laps on the softs, but Manuel Pedro in the Ferrari is going for it. Pedro is doing something that no one else is doing tonight. Can he make something happen in this Ferrari? He is poised to make this a two-stop affair. Will the car stay under him? He is at nearly 70% wear on that left rear tire. He is going to be hemorrhaging time this lap. Already, Dex Twilight is only 4 seconds out from Manuel Pedro. Can Pedro stay ahead of Twilight when he finally comes to jump into the pit lane? And where is the Chevys of Mays and Breezy going to be in relation to Pedro? Because they're going to have tires with 1 extra lap of life in them, basically, by virtue of pitting earlier, but they're now going to be behind the 8 ball on the tire strap for the rest of the race. Already, the gap between first and second has closed down to 2.5 seconds, and it continues to rapidly close down as we watch Dex Twilight go through the S's. Manuel Pedro is struggling to keep this Ferrari under him. The rear of the car is sliding all over the track. I don't know how he's keeping it under him, but he is doing it. The car nearly spins out in the transition from the infield to the banked corner there. Suddenly, the gap is 1.5 seconds. Now 1.25. 1.25. Manuel Pedro finally aborts and ducks into the pits. Manuel Pedro has gone 12 laps on the soft tires. He will not have to pay the piper later. He has paid the piper now. He will have more pace for the rest of this race. But the focus is still going to be on Dex Twilight, who leads now on the strategy that saw them start on the medium tires. We believe that Twilight can go 15 laps on the mediums with no issue whatsoever. The big thing, though, is that after Twilight finally puts on some medium tires, he'll likely only have about 19 to 20 laps left in the event. Twilight can just throw on some softs and run the middle and final stage of this race on the soft compound tire with no issue whatsoever. So yes, Twilight is going to be slow right now with worn out tires, but he has got clean air and his pace is only going to get faster. Where did Manuel Pedro end up in relation to Mays and Breezy Rain? Here's the answer. He is right behind Breezy Rain, but Keflex, who was pitted a little bit earlier, is in the middle of this mix as well. No, I don't think he has, actually. I think Keflex is on medium tires and has just been slow. So Pedro works his way by Keflex. He can see Breezy Rain ahead. Mays is a little bit farther up the road as well. So the Chevys are not as far ahead of the Ferrari as you would think. They have gotten the advantage. They are ahead of the Ferrari, but not by a massive amount. And Manuel Pedro is going to be working a tire life advantage against Mays and Breezy from now until the end of this race, if these drivers are running all softs to the end. And I feel that they've kind of made their bed. They have to commit to that strategy at this point. But for Mays and Breezy, they're just going to have to hope that the track rubbers up enough that on the last lap, there will be enough rubber on the track that they can try and salvage something out of it all. Wiza in 8th position is pitting. Arrow in 9th is pitting as well this lap now. So Mays and Breezy do have the advantage of running in clean air, but the thing is that the Ferrari of Manuel Pedro is still behind him. Pedro overtook them when their tires were all on equal life. Now he's going to have a slight tire life advantage over them. Mays has got to muscle his way ahead of Breezy, lead Breezy to the Wolves, and just go off into the lead. If he lets Breezy stay right behind him, it's just going to make it easier for Pedro to get right back by both of them. I think Pedro is going to be the driver on top on this all soft tire strategy. And honestly, I think this is the winning strategy, if not for the fact that Dex Twilight is basically impossible to beat. Oh my goodness, and that was a mistake. Breezy Rain hit the outside dirt just before turn 4, and that let Pedro slip right through with no issue whatsoever. We turn our focus once again to Dex Twilight. He is pitting at the end of lap 14. He is not going to experience any massive tire fall off on those mediums, but Les Railgun says, I want to go another lap. So he is going to stay on the medium tires for one more lap out here. So Les Railgun is going to go a little bit longer on the mediums. He wants to go aggressive on the softs, have no fall off whatsoever later, but the Astons of Twilight and Kula have both pitted. SSR Quinn has also pitted. So here's going to be the real question. Dex Twilight just turned a bunch of laps in clean air. Where is he going to be in relation to Pedro, Mays, and Breezy? Pedro's already gone by Mays! I completely missed him, but Pedro is really in a class of his own. He's just gone right by Mays. I think with that all but confirms that any shot that Mays had of leading a lap today is over. That streak of leading at least one lap in every event thus far this season is over. And look who it is! That's Dex Twilight! He's gonna be right behind this group, side by side with Breezy Rain by the looks of it. He's gonna be side by side with, no, he's actually ahead of Breezy Rain. That's Mays he's side by side with. So Twilight's already disposed of Breezy Rain. He is now behind Mays, and Twilight, if he is thrown on the soft tires, he can run softs for about 10 laps, be fine to the end, won't have any tire fall off. Yep, I think that the all-soft strategy is the winning strat if we had a normal field with a normal gap of skill or balance of the cars. Again, we don't know if it's skill or car balance or what that is letting Twilight do these unholy performances, but Twilight on tires that aren't even fully up to tip has just walked away from Mays as if Mays is standing still. Manuel Pedro runs in 5th position, but with the speed that Twilight has and the fact that he now has soft tires as well, and his tires are going to be fresher than Pedro's to the end, it won't matter. Twilight is going to just destroy Pedro on track here. Les Railgun pitted this time. So did Rebirth Quint. So did Cars Matthew. Tempered Ship will inherit the lead now in the Ford GT as well at this point in the event. So Tempered Ship is going to go 16 laps on these tires. Manuel Pedro will move up into the 2nd spot. Les Railgun is going to fall all the way down to about 6th after this is all said and done and over. Dex Twilight is right behind the Ferrari. I'm going to be very honest, it's kind of a moot point. I don't know why we're even commentating on this. We know that Twilight's just going to dog walk that Ferrari out of one of these corners. And there's nothing that can be done about it. And just for comparison, Kalula, who pitted at the same point as Twilight, is way down in 7th. He is 12 seconds behind. Manuel Pedro doing everything he can to try and keep that Aston Martin behind. Just about nose to tail. In through the final chicane. Into the final corner. Pedro, you can see he is really struggling to keep the rear of that Ferrari under him. Twilight pulls to the inside with no issue. Pedro comes down and nearly turns himself off the front bumper, and Twilight said, okay, look, it's still early in the race. He backed out of the throttle, let Pedro hold on to the position. Now, Twilight goes to the outside. Pedro's going to hold the inside as they go down in turn number 1. Pedro may have taken a little bit too much speed. He slides a little bit in turn 1. Game load the circuit back, thank you! Through turn 4, Twilight to the inside. There is nothing that Pedro could do. Pedro's going to try and cross him over on the exit of 4, but can't even get the nose of the car back ahead. It's going to be a dead heat drag race between the two. Down the back straight straightaway, but Twilight has the inside line of advantage, and it is Pedro who has the inefficient outside line. Twilight goes deep under braking, and Pedro is going to try and cross him over, can't do anything with it, and Twilight goes into second, and while Tempered Chip is leading, it's only off the back of Chip having not yet made his first stop. Race is over. We are at the halfway point of the restarted race, and the event is over. Dex Twilight will walk off with a guaranteed win. Any shot that the X-League series had of rebalancing the Aston Martin has not changed. And again, we don't know if it was the case that the Aston Martin needs rebalancing, or if it is the case that Dex Twilight is too good for this series and should not be allowed because he is just so ridiculously overpowered in pace compared to everyone else on track. Tempered Chip has finally made his stop after 17 laps on circuit. I wonder if Tempered Chip is going to try and just one-stop it, make that pit stop he is in right now his only pit stop of the race. Now, to make that stick, he'd likely have to run hard tires to the end, but at least somebody is doing something of interest here. Twilight goes into an easy lead. Manuel Pedro is second, and again, I think that Manuel Pedro would win this race if Twilight was not here, because Pedro is on the all-soft tire strategy, the only driver who was able to go 12 laps at the start instead of just 11, and he has opened up a gap on everyone else. For all intents and purposes, I feel this should be Pedro's win, but Twilight is just head and shoulders above everyone else. It's almost unfair. I'm reminded of what you used to see in NASCAR in the early 2010s, where drivers like Kyle Busch and Carl Edwards and Denny Hamlin would just come down to the lower levels and win everything by default. But the problem is, in X-League, this race, this GT3 Pro race, this is the top level. There is no higher level that you can move Dex Twilight to. Everyone else needs to figure out a way to step it up, or they need to hope that the walk-off is so massive here that the drivers who do the balancing for this series end up just nerfing the Aston into the ground, because there is nothing that can be done against Dex Twilight at the moment. Pedro, on worn-out tires, is doing everything he can to just stay in the draft of that Aston Martin, but the Aston has a tire life advantage. Manuel Pedro will have to pit sooner than Twilight, and Twilight is not going to be dealing with any major tire fall-off, while Pedro is going to have nothing but massive tire fall-off as this goes on. Okay, I do want to talk real quickly about Les Railgun here, who is running in the 5th spot. He is the 2nd highest of everyone on the strategy that started on the medium tires. I think that Railgun is going medium, soft. He wants to go long on the mediums and short on the softs. We saw in last night's Porsche Cup race, drivers said that the medium tires were just very powerful. They were the way to go. They were the ideal strategy throughout the event. Right now, Railgun versus Pedro is about a 11.5 second gap. So Railgun hoping that by, again, this will still be a 2-stop strategy, but he's hoping that by having no tire fall off whatsoever, because the Ford is just very good on the tires, coupled with the fact that he's going medium, soft, so he's not even going to remotely see the soft tires fall off late. He's hoping he will be able to just tear into any gap that Pedro has over him for Railgun to take another 2nd place result. So frustrating for Railgun, but the big thing is he's got right behind him Dex Kalula in the Aston Martin that is running the exact same strategy as Twilight. Kalula in the same car as Twilight. These two are on the same strategy, fighting for 2nd position on this strategy, the strategy that started on the medium tires. But here's the thing, we look at Kalula, his tire life right now, 31%. So Kalula is on the soft tires right now, Railgun is on mediums. This should be a relatively easy overtake by the 77 Aston Martin. He goes right by, not a single issue in the world with that overtake. That was a walk-off move there. Now Kalula will scoot away, but again, Kalula is on soft tires. He'll have to pit sooner rather than later, but the thing is, Kalula on the same strategy as Twilight, medium, soft, we believe, he can pit with about 9 to 10 laps left, have no real issue with tire fall off, and be good to the end. He'll just continue to gap Les Railgun. It will be interesting if Kalula has anything for Manuel Pedro. And to give credit where credit is due, while Maze and Breezy Rain have completely fallen off a cliff in pace as this has gone on, Manuel Pedro has stayed just within line of sight of Dex Twilight. He is not fighting Dex Twilight, to be fair. He's just running in his draft. But this is the closest thing that Dex Twilight has had to actual competition all season long. So Pedro is really stepping up and making something of it here. The lone Ferrari entry into tonight's race really trying to at least show up to the battlefield against Twilight, which is more than what you can say about basically everyone else this season. Between the Chevys, Breezy Rain has gone back in front of Maze for third and fourth position. These drivers run with about a 6-second advantage over Dex Kalula, but they are going to have some massive tire fall off later in the event. They have not paid the metaphorical Piper yet. They are already 7 seconds back. I could very easily see a scenario where Dex Kalula and Les Railgun run down and blast the doors off of Breezy Rain and Maze at the end of this race. Real quickly, looking at time penalties right now. This is one small thing that is still in Pedro's favor. Dex Twilight, 3.4 seconds of time penalty. Manuel Pedro, only 1 second. Breezy Rain in third, he has 2.6 seconds. Maze in fourth, no time penalties. Dex Kalula in fifth, 4.9 seconds. Les Railgun in sixth, no time penalties. Rebirth Quit in seventh, 1.8 seconds of time penalties. Temper Chip in 8th, no time penalties. Savage in 9th, 1 second of time penalties. Arrow 592 in 10th, 0.7. Wise in 11th, 0.5. Car Matthew in 12th, 0.5. Keflex 500 milligrams in 13th, 2.6. CLN Clinical, last of our runners, 14th with 4 seconds of time penalties. We are going to go ahead and spend a lap on board with Manuel Pedro here around Indianapolis. Give you an idea what a flying lap looks like here at the IMS Grand Prix circuit. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to Indianapolis. We are following Manuel Pedro, who runs in second. We believe that Breezy Rain and Maze will have to pit this lap or next lap. They're at 46% wear on their tires right now. Look at Manuel Pedro, who runs in second, losing time to the leaders. He's at 63%. So I guess the Chevys there of Breezy Rain and Maze, they jumped off the softs. They put on the mediums so they can go nice and long. Manuel Pedro pitting at the end of lap 23, so he's only going to have another 11 laps to go on the soft tires, but he has a massive amount of advantage over the rest of the field right now, except for Dex Twilight. Twilight has just been in a zone of his own. Dex Kalula is on the exact same strategy in the exact same car. He is not looking like he's going to be able to run down the duo of Breezy Rain and Maze, though. Breezy Rain and Maze are still going to be ahead of him. They both have made only one stop thus far. So it looks to me like Pedro is going to be able to pull off a masterclass performance, but due to Twilight's presence, it's just kind of a moot point. Rebirth Quint continues the overtake on Manuel Pedro, as Pedro just came out of pit lane. So Pedro's going to have to deal with a little bit of traffic here But traffic has not been too much of an issue. Again, if he's on the soft tires again, yes, he'll have some fall off at the very last lap, but he should have a gigantic advantage over his rivals, which would be the Chevys of Breezy Rain and Maze, and then Kalula farther back. Dex Twilight is pitting now. He is pitting with 10 laps left. So Twilight saw that Pedro pitted. He went to reactively pit now, so if a yellow flag came out, he wouldn't be behind in the strategy call. We're going to see Breezy Rain pit this time. Maze is actually going to stay out. So even though Maze has not really had the performance today, as they come to the start-finish line, Maze will officially lead a lap today. Just barely, but he will technically lead a lap, and he keeps his streak of leading at least one lap in every X-League event thus far this season alive. Not really sure what his strat is, though, unless he thinks these tires are going to be absolutely awful, trying to go just 10 laps at the end. I think Breezy Rain might actually beat Maze on circuit here. Les Railgun now filters up into the second spot. He is going to be ahead of Dex Twilight, but only by about 4 seconds. Mind you, Les Railgun has only made one stop thus far. Twilight's already made his second one, but Railgun has not really put a lot of wear on these tires yet. And look at this, Manuel Pedro runs in fourth. 23 seconds out of the lead, but 12 seconds out from Railgun, and only about 5 seconds out from Dex Twilight. Again, it's not much, but only 5 seconds out, 25 laps into a race is much closer than anyone else has been all season long here in the GT3 Pro Series. Dex Kalula, who pitted at the same time, roughly the same time, he is back here in the 9th spot. He is actually behind Savage, the lowest of the 3 Chevys right now. Rebirth Quint now pits out of the 5th spot. So this will move the Ford of Tempered Ship back up into 6th. Again, we think that Tempered Ship might be running a one-stop strategy for tonight's race. We're not sure, but we think he may be running a one-stop strategy to try and make something happen here. Gap between Twilight and Pedro is about 6 seconds at the moment in Twilight's favor. Again, penalties, while Twilight has 3.4 seconds and Pedro only has 1 second, Pedro is not close enough to really take advantage of that. Twilight could easily earn more penalties than even his teammate Kalula, and would still be in position to just walk off with this race win. Up 10 positions after lagging out and being forced to restart near the rear of the grid in tonight's event. Maze finally pits with what will be 8 laps left in tonight's event. Those rear tires, 62% wear. But he did lead a lap. He keeps his run, his streak of leading at least 1 lap up and alive, but he's going to be behind Breezy Rain. Might end up being behind Dex Kalula as well. I think Breezy Rain might end up being the highest finishing of the Chevys when tonight's race is over. So Les Railgun in the Ford GT goes back to the lead, but he's going to have to pit eventually. He is at 32% wear on that left rear tire right now with 7 laps left. Credit where credit is due to Railgun. He has gone very, very long on this set of tires, but he's kind of in a no-win scenario right now. Dex Twilight is less than 3 seconds back and is tearing this gap down. And then Manuel Pedro is now about 6.5 seconds out from Twilight. So now that Pedro has lost sight of Twilight, his pace has regressed back to what it was earlier, which, to be fair, Pedro has been one of the fastest drivers all day today. Is Railgun going to try and one-stop this? I don't think he has the fuel for it. Will be 7 laps left when they hit the line. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yeah, 7 laps to go when you hit the line. Railgun in his fuel tank, he has 22.4%. If that Ford GT only uses about 3.1% of fuel per lap, Railgun will be able to limp this car to the finish here on one stop. His tires will be cooked, but he might one-stop this. It won't matter, though. Twilight has already closed the gap down to just 1 second. But Pedro might see second place cut from him, because again, Railgun has virtually no, I think he has no time penalties still at this stage of the race, and Pedro has 1 second of time penalties. So on a one-stop strategy, Railgun might beat Pedro here. Again, on this strategy of medium, soft, soft, Twilight is the anomaly. The actual an actual driver who is in the same car but with a more reasonable pace is still in 6th behind the Chevy of Breezy Rain up there. Well, Twilight's already gone by Railgun and already opened that gap up ridiculously. Jesus. I don't know why I broadcast this series. So Tempered Chip runs in 4th position. We think that he also is on a one-stop strategy, but his tires are so much worse off than Twilight's. If we're iffy on Twilight making it to the end on one-stopping, I think there's no way Tempered Chip makes it to the end on the one-stop right now. Already, Tempered Chip has Breezy Rain behind, and Breezy Rain should not have to worry about tires to the end of this race. Interesting thing, last night we had 3 yellow flags. In this race, in the GT3 season, in the GT3 race last season, they had 4 yellow flags, including 2 in the last 10 laps. We have only had 1 yellow flag tonight, and technically that was a red flag with a partial lobby restart. That's why we have a 34-lap race instead of a 45-lap event, because that red flag was called at technically lap 11. Oh, there's contact between the two of them, and Tempered Chip into the dirt. Runs a little wide. That might get submitted to officials later as being dirty. Looked to me like a racing incident, but that is the kind of thing that a pissed-off driver would likely remember and report later. But I think Tempered Chip is going to be having bigger issues as this goes on. Interesting enough, Kalula is still 4 seconds behind Breezy Rain, is not really showing the ability to run him down. If anything, I'll be more interested to see if Maze here in 7th will be able to do anything to Kalula late in the going here, because Maze is going to have tires that are much fresher than Kalula's to the checkered flag. Already, that gap between Twilight and Railgun is absolutely absurd. Manuel Pedro, that gap right now that you see on the timesheet by Pedro, that is not his gap to the leader, that is Pedro's gap to Les Railgun. With 5 laps left, Pedro has 4.5 seconds between himself and Railgun. So Railgun is hemorrhaging time, but Pedro's tires are not getting any younger. 42% wear on the tires for Les Railgun. For Manuel Pedro, who is in 3rd position right now, 39%. He still has the advantage right now, and the gap is closing, slowly but surely. Oh, so when I set to intervals, it properly shows me how many seconds Pedro is behind the leader. But when I switch it to time, it only tells me how far he is behind Railgun. Okay. Now the gap down to less than 4 seconds between Railgun and Pedro. But again, Pedro, I have no doubt he'll catch Railgun, but he has to pass him and open up a gap because Pedro has to outrun a time penalty. Railgun is not nearly as worried about that. They'll come down to the start-finish line. 4 laps left in the event now as Twilight crosses the start-finish line that time by. Pedro now less than 3 seconds out from Railgun, so he's going to catch them. But again, we changed our focus to penalties. Pedro, 1 second. Railgun, no time penalties yet. Kalula back there in 6 is earned 7.2 seconds of time penalties. And while he's caught Tempered Chip, it's not really going to matter because Tempered Chip has basically no time penalty. That is Maze just behind them both, and Maze has no time, literally, Tempered Chip has virtually no time penalties. Maze has literally no time penalties, so Kalula might still get knocked out of a top 5 result here. Tempered Chip now slips back to 7th, but Mays still runs behind Kalula, and suddenly Mays goes ghost mode. Has there been a controller disconnect there on the number 13 Chevy? He slows down, pulls to the infield. What's gone wrong with Mays? Well, that derails any chance that he likely had at a top 5, and that may have saved Dex Kalula, because Tempered Chip's tires are going to be so cooked he won't be close enough to take advantage. Kalula might have just salvaged a 5th place result. Breezy Rain on track to salvage the 4th. The fight for 2nd is on. Manuel Pedro running down Les Railgun. It is 3 laps to go right now. Through turn 4. And into the S's right before the back straightaway. We know that Ferrari is nice and nimble and has some good acceleration as well. The Ford GT has some great nimbleness, but not quite as fast in a straight line. Into the S's once again. The gap is only down to about 2 car lengths, maybe just 1.5 car lengths between these two now. And Pedro closes right in on the Ford GT in the braking zone. Looks to try and cross him over, coming out of the chicane. Not really working, though, into the final corner now. Again, both these cars are going to have some really badly worn out tires here. But Pedro is on softs, and Railgun might be on the hard compound tires, trying to make this one-stop work. Pedro pulls up alongside, neck and neck. And he'll complete the overtake in turn 1, but he has 2 laps to try and open up this gap now. He has to open the gap to more than 1 second. Pedro is 10, oh my god, he is 10 seconds behind Twilight. Again, for comparison, Kalula, on the exact same strategy, is still behind the Chevrolet of Breezy Rain. He is crashing Breezy Rain, but Kalula, on the same strategy of Twilight, nowhere near the front. So whatever is going on, Twilight is massively benefited. Maybe it's just he is way better of a driver than everyone else in the series. Maybe the balancing is bad and Kalula does not have the skill to take advantage of a borked Aston Martin. But in either case, already Pedro has pulled more than a second on Railgun. I think these have been the only 3 guys to finish on the podium this season, actually? I don't think so. Well, white flag is in the air. Dex Twilight has just taken the white flag with a 10, nearly 11-second gap on Manuel Pedro. But I am going to go ahead and say it, even though it's not going to count as a win because he's not going to be the first to cross the line. In my book, at least, this should be a race that Pedro should have come home as the winner in. He was the only driver willing to commit to the all-soft tire strategy, really had to make some hay on some dead tires, and he made it work, and he has been in a zone of his own all day today. In addition, Pedro has been the only driver all season long that has been able to keep any pace with Dex Twilight for more than just 2 or 3 corners. Yes, Twilight is going to be the one to cross the start-finish line and win this race. But my goodness, in my heart, and I would imagine the hearts of most of the people watching, it would be the driver in the number 95, Manuel Pedro, who's really put it together. If you watched the GT3 season last year, Pedro had some good runs, but had a really rough time putting it together. This has been a race-winning performance, but the presence of this guy here, Dex Twilight, has meant it all comes for naught in the record books and championship. Dex Twilight makes it 4 race wins in a row, all from the pole here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Manuel Pedro, though, by far the most impressive driver of the night on a Ferrari that is awful on managing the tires, brings the car home in second. Les Railgun continues his streak of podium finishes. He apparently got Pedro on time penalties. Well, that's dramatic. Railgun was just barely within 1 second of Pedro apparently at the end, so Railgun will be scored with second, and Pedro is knocked down to third. Breezy Rain is the highest of the Chevys. Mays comes home in fifth over Kalula. Kalula will be relegated down to 6 due to time penalties. Tempered Chip limped that car home to a 7th place result here. 8th will go Matthews, 9th to Quint, 10th to Clinical, then Savage, Wiza, Arrow, and Keflex. We're going to take a Twitch mandated ad break, and when we come back, we'll try to talk with some of our top finishers here at Indianapolis. Railgun, can you hear me? Yes, I can. All right, go ahead and include your audio when you get a chance. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Grand Prix circuit. Our race is over. We have one of our podium finishers here willing to talk with us. Post-race, Les Railgun. Railgun, you did everything right and made the impossible happen. You made a one-stop work somehow. How in the devil did you pull that off?
I mean, the car could do it, but I honestly say that I just got into a disadvantage by doing that strat. I maybe could have won that if I did the same thing as Twilight. Yeah,
So you
it was
believe
not
the
the
medium
best of the
soft
strats.
was faster?
Yes, 100%.
Oh, fair enough. In the last two laps, Manuel Pedro caught you and walked by you. Did you know you were going to get him on time penalties?
Not. I know that I could get him on the penalties. I know it's not much about the penalties, but more of his tire wear. I know his tire wear is gonna be a lot worse than mine, so I was counting on that plus the pen as well.
Well, you made it stick in the end. Another race, another podium, but still nowhere near the front of the field. Do you think that there is still a balancing issue with the Ford versus the Aston, or do you think this was just strategy decided at all?
No, I do think the Aston still accelerates a lot quicker than the Ford. The Ford just get left behind in, like, even on a slipstream. The car just barely pulls. It's like I'm not in the slipstream at all. So yeah, I still think that the Aston has a way too much acceleration out of the corners. It's been that way since the first race.
All right, fair enough. I do want to say, Railgun, thanks for jumping in and talking with us. Would you be willing to stick around to do translator duties for Pedro as well?
Sure, bro.
All right, can you ask Pedro to include his audio in the Xbox party first?
Okay.
Oh, okay, sweet.
Yeah.
Pedro, fantastic run out there. The all soft strategy just barely missed out on second. How in the world did you pull off that 12-lap run on the softs at the start of the day?
Ele perguntou aí se.
Eu entendi a
Você
pergunta.
entendeu? Ah, então.
And it's really bad. The tire manager of Ferrari is bad. And the tire. Como é que fala amarelo o pneu? Ajuda aí, Helga. My tire is yellow in the 9 lap. It's crazy. The car no have grip for 3 laps.
Oh. No. You still were incredible despite having no grip. At the end of the race, did you think you would be able to get Railgun and beat him on time penalties?
Agora não entendi. Agora não. Teria que ter feito uma corrida perfeita para não perder para você. E mesmo assim, é só isso. Teria sido muito pouca a diferença.
He basically just said he wouldn't needed to do a perfect race to keep the gap like above me, you know, on the pens. Even though it would have been still very close. That's what he said.
All right. Pedro, you put on a fantastic run. Is there anything else you want to say before we let you go for the night? Yeah, does he have anything else he wants to say?
Corrida foi muito boa, várias disputas legal com os Chevrolets, mas o pace tava bom, mas o pace do Kevin é outro nível, não tinha como acompanhar.
So basically, what he said is that the race was good, the battles were nice, but Twilight's pace is just unbeatable. He couldn't keep up.
Well, that's the word from Manuel Pedro, and Pedro did the closest thing we saw to keeping up with Twilight all season long. Railgun, Pedro, thank you for jumping in and talking with us, and I hope you guys have a good night tonight.
Well, thanks,
You
good
too.
night.
See ya.
And with that in mind, that'll pretty much wrap up our broadcast here from Indianapolis Motor Speedway on the Grand Prix circuit. But don't worry, tomorrow night we will be back for FEC's IndyCar Indy 250 around the oval. I highly encourage you to join us there for something that has a little bit different flavor and a lot more speed. But until then, I've been your host for today's broadcast, Insanely 13. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Farewell and goodbye, everyone.